There is a passage in Deuteronomy where God does something unusual. He doesn't speak in metaphor. He makes a list. 7 specific foods, named precisely, tied to a land he describes as designed for human flourishing. Scholars spent centuries reading that passage as agricultural poetry. But nutritional scientists who analyzed those 7 foods together, as a system, found something they couldn't easily dismiss. Each food supplied what the others lacked. The protein gaps covered by the fruit profiles. The fat-soluble nutrients unlocked by the oils. The minerals the grains couldn't provide, filled in exactly by what remained on the list. You can call that coincidence. Or you can sit with the possibility that this list was written by someone who understood human biology at a level that took us thousands of years to confirm with laboratories. Today, we are walking through 10 foods straight from biblical scripture with real science explaining why each one belongs here. Stay through this entire list. Because number 4 describes a medical intervention so precise that researchers spent decades trying to understand how ancient people arrived at it without a single instrument. And number 1 is a combination that nutritional science keeps returning to with something close to disbelief. 10 foods. Thousands of years of wisdom. Let us get into it. Number 10. Lentils. The meal Esau knew was worth a birthright. Most people read that story as a cautionary tale about impulsiveness. But ask the real question. Why was a bowl of lentils worth a birthright to a man who had just come in from the field, physically spent, running on nothing? Because lentils are not ordinary food. They deliver complete plant protein carrying every essential amino acid the body needs to repair tissue after hard physical labor. Their iron content rivals meat in quantity, which is precisely why ancient cooks paired them with acidic ingredients to pull that iron across the gut lining more efficiently. The fiber feeds the intestinal bacteria responsible for regulating immune function and managing inflammation. Research has linked regular legume consumption to measurably longer lifespans across populations on 6 continents. Not supplements. Not protocols. Just beans eaten consistently, the way a hungry man in the desert ate them without once thinking about the science. Number 9. Pomegranates. The fruit carved into the temple. King Solomon's temple had 200 carved pomegranates on its pillars. The high priest's robe was decorated with them in blue, purple, and scarlet. No culture builds sacred iconography around something arbitrary. The fruit contains a compound called punicalagin, found in almost no other food source on Earth. Inside the digestive tract, it breaks down into molecules called urolithins, and this is where modern research is now intensely focused. Urolithins appear to trigger mitophagy, the cellular process by which damaged mitochondria are identified, dismantled, and replaced. Your mitochondria are the energy source of every cell in your body. As they degrade, fatigue builds, tissue resilience falls, and the capacity to repair quietly diminishes. Clinical studies on pomegranate consumption show measurable reductions in blood pressure, improved arterial elasticity, and lower C-reactive protein, the primary blood marker for systemic inflammation. Its antioxidant concentration surpasses blueberries, green tea, and red wine. The people who decorated their holiest buildings with this fruit had no word for mitochondria. They just knew what they were watching. Number 8. Figs. The prescription that saved a king. In 2 Kings, King Hezekiah is dying from a severe infection. The prophet Isaiah doesn't only pray. He issues a medical instruction, a compress of figs pressed directly onto the wound. The king recovers. For centuries that recovery was filed away as coincidence. Then researchers began studying figs in earnest and found something that stopped them. Figs contain phycin, a proteolytic enzyme that breaks down dead and damaged tissue, cleaning a wound from the cellular level outward. They also carry compounds with documented antimicrobial properties. Fresh fig latex has shown inhibitory effects against bacterial growth in laboratory settings. Isaiah's prescription turned out to be biochemically defensible. Eaten as food, figs are among the most mineral-dense fruits available, rich in calcium, magnesium, potassium, and a pectin fiber concentration that feeds the beneficial bacteria lining the gut. Isaiah didn't guess. He prescribed. And the prescription worked because it was built on something older than his own knowledge. Number 7. Garlic. The food they wept for in the wilderness. In Numbers 11, the Israelites are in the desert. They have food. And they weep. Not for freedom. For garlic, mourned by name in the wilderness. Once you understand what garlic does inside a human body, that grief stops sounding dramatic. When a clove is crushed, an enzymatic reaction begins immediately. Alliinase converts alliin into allicin within seconds. Allicin is one of the broadest spectrum natural antimicrobials ever documented. It disrupts bacterial membranes, interferes with viral replication, and does so across multiple biological pathways simultaneously. This is precisely why microorganisms have such difficulty building resistance to it. Controlled trials confirm that regular garlic consumption reduces both the frequency and severity of respiratory infections. Multiple studies show meaningful reductions in blood pressure and LDL cholesterol. Egyptian medical papyri list garlic in over 20 separate medicinal preparations. The critical variable is heat. Allicin is volatile. Let crushed garlic rest 10 minutes before it contacts heat. That window preserves what makes it medically worth eating. Number 6. Olive oil. The ancient world's most complete medicine. Olive oil appears in biblical text over 140 times. Kings were anointed with it. The Good Samaritan pours it directly into a stranger's injuries as an act of deliberate medical care, not ceremony. Extra virgin olive oil is one of the most rigorously studied foods in nutritional science. The Mediterranean diet, built around it as its cornerstone, has been examined in hundreds of controlled clinical trials and consistently linked to reduced rates of cardiovascular disease, cancer, cognitive decline, and all-cause mortality. The compound driving much of this is oleocanthal, a polyphenol that operates through essentially the same biochemical pathway as ibuprofen, reducing inflammation at the cellular level daily without side effects. But here is the distinction that changes how you shop. Most commercial olive oil has been harvested late, processed with heat, or blended with cheaper refined oils. The polyphenol content drops dramatically. Cold-pressed, early harvest, extra virgin oil from a verified source is what you want. Most of what lines grocery store shelves is not that. Number 5. Barley. The bread of ordinary people that outperformed everything. When Jesus fed 5,000 people in the Gospel of John, those loaves were not wheat. They were barley. The grain of soldiers and common laborers who couldn't afford better. And those common people were eating one of the most cardiovascular protective grains ever studied. Barley contains the highest concentration of a fiber called beta-glucan found in any grain on Earth. The FDA has formally authorized a health claim on food products containing it because the evidence is that strong. Beta-glucan forms a slow-moving gel inside the digestive tract, flattening blood sugar spikes after meals, binding LDL cholesterol and removing it from circulation before reabsorption, and selectively feeding the gut bacteria that regulate immune function. Clinical comparisons between barley and oats, already considered gold standard for heart health, consistently show barley outperforming oats in post-meal blood sugar response. The people who ate barley bread drenched in olive oil every single day were running what we would now recognize as a daily cardiovascular intervention. They didn't need a cardiologist to name it. If this is shifting how you see food and ancient wisdom, subscribe right now and turn on the notification bell. We go deep on this evidence every week, and what comes next takes this conversation somewhere most people have never been. Number 4. Dates. The survival food science finally caught up to. The date palm is referenced more than any other fruit-bearing tree across biblical texts. Soldiers crossing desert terrain. Pilgrims traveling to Jerusalem. Traders navigating days between food sources. All of them carry dates. Not because they tasted good. Because they worked. Dates contain natural glucose and fructose for rapid fuel, packaged with fiber, potassium, magnesium, copper, manganese, and B vitamins. Multiple controlled clinical trials have found something remarkable about dates in the context of pregnancy specifically. Women who consumed dates regularly in the final weeks experienced significantly shorter labor times and better cervical dilation outcomes at admission. Ancient midwives across the region prescribed them for exactly this reason. Modern obstetrics arrived at the same conclusion independently with clinical trials instead of generations of observation. Even the pit, the part everyone discards, was ground into powder and used therapeutically in traditional Arabic medicine for gastrointestinal infections. They knew they had something that worked. They just didn't have the language for what they were carrying. Number 3. Raw honey. The antimicrobial that never expired. Eat honey, for it is good. Proverbs. Scripture doesn't return to a food this many times without reason. Raw honey is one of the most comprehensively studied natural antimicrobials in the scientific literature. It kills antibiotic-resistant bacteria, including MRSA strains that defeat pharmaceutical antibiotics, through 3 mechanisms operating simultaneously. It generates hydrogen peroxide enzymatically as it contacts tissue. Its extremely low water content and acidic pH create an environment where most pathogens cannot survive. And it contains a protein called defensin, one that actively dismantles bacterial cell structures. Manuka honey is now used in certified medical wound dressings in hospitals worldwide as standard clinical protocol, not complementary medicine. The single most important word in everything just described is raw. When honey is heated above approximately 40 degrees Celsius, the enzymes driving its antimicrobial activity begin to degrade. The processed honey in most grocery stores has been transformed from a medicinal food into an expensive syrup. Archaeologists found 3,000-year-old honey in Egyptian tombs still edible. There is no other food on earth with that kind of biological stability. Number 2. Almonds. Sacred architecture built around a nut. When God instructed Moses on the design of the menorah, the cups were to be shaped like almond blossoms. When Aaron's rod budded overnight as a sign of divine authority in Numbers 17, it produced almonds. The people who built sacred things around this food were the same people eating it every single day and watching what it did to the body over a lifetime. Gram for gram, almonds are among the most nutrient-dense foods on earth. A single serving provides roughly 37% of the daily requirement for vitamin E in its most bioavailable form, the fat-soluble antioxidant that protects cell membranes from oxidative damage implicated in aging, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. Almonds are also high in magnesium, a mineral involved in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the human body and deficient in a substantial portion of the modern population due to soil depletion and processed food diets. Clinical trials on almonds specifically show that regular consumption lowers LDL cholesterol, reduces post-meal blood sugar spikes, and improves gut microbiome diversity. The ancient world built this food into sacred iconography not because it was beautiful, because it was that important. Number 1. The 7 sacred foods of Deuteronomy. The meal commanded by God. And here is the one that changes how you read everything else. Deuteronomy 8 verse 8. God is speaking about the promised land and becomes precise. 7 specific foods listed by name. Wheat, barley, grapes, figs, pomegranates, olives, and dates. Modern nutritional science noticed something scholars hadn't. These 7 foods together form one of the most complete nutritional combinations ever assembled in a single meal, and the way they work together is almost impossible to attribute to chance. Wheat and barley supply complementary proteins, beta-glucan fiber, B vitamins, and slow-burning energy without disrupting blood sugar. Grapes deliver polyphenol that activate the body's own cellular repair processes and protect the cardiovascular system simultaneously. Figs supply the specific minerals, magnesium, potassium, calcium, that the grains and fruits don't provide in sufficient quantities, filling gaps as if the list was written with those gaps already accounted for. Pomegranates bring an antioxidant concentration that outranks virtually every other fruit, plus compounds that convert into powerful anti-inflammatory agents inside the gut. Olives, eaten whole, deliver oleocanthal alongside the monounsaturated fats that make every fat-soluble nutrient in the bowl dramatically more bioavailable. The olives don't just contribute their own nutrition. They unlock the nutrition of everything surrounding them. Dates close the loop with rapid energy, antimicrobial tannins, potassium for blood pressure, and fiber that prevents the blood sugar spike that fast fuel would otherwise cause. When researchers analyze these 7 foods as a system, they find each one provides what the others cannot. The anti-inflammatory compounds from multiple sources appear to work synergistically, producing effects greater than any single ingredient generates alone. This was not a description of fertile geography. It was a prescription for a life well lived. And 3,000 years later, cancer researchers, cardiologists, and gut health specialists keep arriving at the same address the Israelites were already standing at. 10 foods, all pointing to the same conclusion. The people who ate this way were not primitive. They were paying extraordinarily close attention to their bodies, to their land, and to what worked across generations. They didn't have clinical trials. They had something more patient, centuries of consistent human observation, embedded into the most enduring literature in history. Modern science did not discover these benefits. It confirmed them one study at a time. Here is the challenge worth taking seriously. Pick one food from this list. Source the highest quality version you can find, as close to its original form as possible, and bring it genuinely into your daily eating for 30 days. As food, the way it was always intended. Then pay attention the way the ancient world paid attention to what happens. Drop a comment below and tell me which food surprised you most. Was it the 7-food system in Deuteronomy? The fig compress that turned out to be biochemically precise? The honey still edible in a 3,000-year-old tomb? I read every comment on this channel. If you are not subscribed, hit that button right now and ring the notification bell. We post every week, and the next video goes even deeper. You do not want to miss it.